Hello, welcome to the Speech Diaries. I'm Loretta Zjac. How many of you enjoyed listening to fairy tales when you were a child? Let's be honest, how many still do? What were some of your favorites? For me, there were three that resonated with me the most: Cinderella, The Ugly Duckling, and The Elves and the Shoemaker. I would spend hours just dreaming about becoming the heroine in the story, imagining that if I were Cinderella, a handsome prince would come and rescue me from whatever's troubling me at the moment. And the ugly duckling, why, I would just have to find a flock of wonderful happy swans, and then I would be accepted into their community. I would belong. And as far as the elves and the shoemaker goes, well, I don't have to do all the laborious work. Just be a good, kind person, and then when I'm asleep at night, little elves will come and do the work for me. Right? At least that was in my childish imagination. But as I grew, I knew that reality was a lot different. But deep down inside my subconscious, was it? I'm going to take a look at the three fairy tales that I talked about earlier and compare them with some of the thoughts that I had during similar circumstances. And let's see what happens. I do have to admit that my earlier perception of the fairy tales proved to be flawed as far as my expectations went. First, we'll start with Cinderella. Cinderella is good, kind, a dreamer, and very hardworking. The problem is, she lives with her stepmother and two stepsisters who bully Cinderella all the time. In fact, they make her do all of the chores in the house, such as cooking, cleaning, and mending. They won't even let her have a good time. And when the king set out a proclamation stating that all fair maidens were to attend a ball in honor of the prince, well, Cinderella wasn't allowed to go. This made her very sad. But she was such a good and kind individual that her fairy godmother actually appeared to her and gave her the most beautiful gift she could ever dream: the opportunity to go to the ball. And she did this by turning a pumpkin into a coach, her rags into a beautiful ball gown, and giving her enchanted glass slippers to wear to the ball. When she arrived at the palace, as soon as the prince saw her, he couldn't stop looking at her, and she was the only one he danced with all through the night. But the magic would end at midnight, and when the clock was about to strike 12, Cinderella ran out of the palace so she wouldn't be seen. On her way out, she lost one of her glass slippers, but she had the other one to keep with her. When the prince saw that she had ran off, he went after her and found the glass slipper that she had lost. Immediately, he went on a search through the whole kingdom and declared that whoever fits this glass slipper, I will take as my bride. And he tried all of the houses with all of the young women, with no luck at all, until finally he came to Cinderella's house. When Cinderella tried on the glass slipper, Immediately it fit. The two found each other and declared their love, and both Cinderella and her prince lived happily ever after. Now let's take a look at Loretta. Loretta is good, kind, a dreamer for sure, and she puts in effort to do hard work. Let's just say that. Loretta is also bullied by kids at school, some relatives, and even a teacher. But Loretta believed in the story of Cinderella, and she knew that if she waited it out, her fairy godmother would come and help her. And she waited and waited and waited. But there was no fairy godmother. So then Loretta decided to take it upon herself to find her Prince Charming. When Loretta was young, she would accompany her parents to a dance every Saturday night at the Polish Legion, and there she met a boy in a band. One time, he even gave her some sheet music to a song that she absolutely loved. This kind gesture ignited her desire for romance, and she began to fall big time. For a few years, he was her one true love, her handsome prince. She would often see him at dances playing his guitar, and most of the time she would just sit there watching, dreaming of the day that he would look at her the very same way. Eventually, they both went their separate ways. But then, on a beautiful summer afternoon, she met her Prince Charming, her one and only true love, John. He handed her a flower the day they met and said, "Here's a beautiful rose for a beautiful girl." He had chestnut-colored bedroom eyes and looked like a young version of Al Pacino. He would make all of her problems disappear, and she wanted him no matter what it took. She was determined that he was her happily ever after. As it turns out, although she was ready to take on the responsibilities of their future and family, John was not. She was expecting a prince and got nothing more than a frog. Loretta then realized that there was no fairy godmother, no version of Prince Charming, and no happily ever after. In other words, the story of Cinderella was flawed. The Ugly Duckling. The duckling was good, kind, friendly, and wanted to belong. The problem was, he looked different than all the rest. His siblings made fun of him, and so did all the other birds in the pond. Even the forest animals would bully him from time to time. He was so sad that eventually he ran away. An old lady found him and brought the duckling into her house. But there too she had a cat and a chicken, and once they saw how ugly he was, they made fun of him as well. He felt like he wasn't welcome, and he had nowhere to go. He flew away and landed near a lake. He spent the whole winter there, and when spring arrived, he heard these beautiful birds nearby and looked and saw how lovely they were, white and graceful. And as he was looking at these beautiful birds. He looked down into the lake and saw his reflection. He was one of them as well. He was a beautiful swan. And the other swans, once they saw him, welcomed him into their flock. And there he stayed, happy and beautiful. And he felt confident and self-assured because now he could swim all he wanted to. He had friends to play with, and he could fly up in the air, carefree and happy. Now let's take a look at Loretta. Loretta is good, kind, friendly, and so wants to belong. But just like the ugly duckling in the story, she looks different. She has bright orange hair, freckles, is overweight, and she's made fun of. She tries everything to change her looks. She dyes her hair. She tries facial masks, exercise, anything she can in order to look like everyone else. But nothing seems to work, no matter how hard she tries. Every day, she wakes up looking the same. In her frustration, she came to the conclusion that the story can't be realistic. I mean, have you ever seen an ugly duckling? So therefore, Loretta's only conclusion is that the story of the ugly duckling is absolutely, unequivocally flawed. Finally, the elves and the shoemaker. The shoemaker, he was good, kind, generous, and hardworking, and only had one piece of leather left to make a pair of shoes. Let me give you a summary of the story, just in case you've never heard it before. With that one piece of leather, he cut and prepped it the night before he was going to make the shoes. Then he went to bed. When he woke up, the shoes were already made, and they were beautiful. A few moments later, a customer walks into the store, totally impressed with the shoes. In fact, he pays double for them. This allows the shoemaker to purchase even more leather and make more shoes. That way he can fill his store with lovely shoes that people will want to buy. But he didn't understand how the shoes were made. Still, he made a plan to make more shoes the very next day. When he woke up the next morning, there were even more shoes made, just as lovely. More customers came into the store and began to buy the shoes. But one thing the cobbler and his wife wanted to know was who was making the shoes. One night, before they went to bed, they decided that they would wake up in the middle of the night and peek to see who was doing this extraordinary good deed. And when they did, they found that it was little elves that had come in through the window. They also noticed that the clothes the elves were wearing were torn and frayed. The very next day, the shoemaker and his wife decided to make clothes for the little elves as a thank you gift for all the hard work that they did. That night, instead of putting out leather to make new shoes, the shoemaker and his wife put out little clothes for the elves. And when the elves came, they put on their new clothes and then went back to the forest and lived happily ever after. And so did the shoemaker. And again, let's have a look at Loretta. Loretta is good, kind, generous, and she has somewhat of a sense of humor. Throughout her life, she has aspired to have different careers. First as a photographer, a public speaker, an author, illustrator, and a radio and television personality. She did have to take a job with the city of Hamilton working as a clerk for 29 years, which she totally appreciates. But deep down in her heart, she knew she wanted something more. She wanted to be a great communicator, to inspire people to be the best they could be. That was her overall objective. One night, she thought she would try an experiment. She was remembering the Elves and the Shoemaker and thinking, well, what's it going to hurt to try? She put a notepad and a pen down on a table, then went to bed. The very next morning, she woke up, ran downstairs, and to her surprise, it was no longer blank. It read, "If you go to the store, please get eggs." The Elves and the Shoemaker, in theory, and in reality, at least as far as Loretta goes, is definitely flawed. Have you ever had a light bulb moment? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. That moment when all of a sudden everything makes sense. When I was sitting around one afternoon thinking about those fairy tales and how they disappointed me as an adult, it finally dawned on me. What I was doing was taking the wrong role in those fairy tales. I was totally looking at it from the wrong perspective. I saw myself as the heroine, the main subject of the story, when in order to garner my success or achieve my goals in reality, I have to look at it in a totally different perspective. For example, Cinderella. I am the fairy godmother. I'm the one who is in charge of creating my own magic. And I do this by believing in me, by not listening to people who are doubting me, the naysayers, the people who aren't supporting my goals. I listen to my internal voice, and I trust and believe in myself. And once you do that, you can be your own fairy godmother. As far as the Ugly Duckling goes, I looked at myself as being ugly rather than looking at what I truly am. I'm an individual. I have unique characteristics that are only mine and will always be only mine. No one else has my DNA. I am unique, and I should embrace that and move forward. Enhance the qualities that make me happy and make me proud. If somebody doesn't like what they see, that's fine. They can absolutely look at something else. But as long as I like what I see in the mirror or the reflection in the lake, then I'm good. And I know that there are people around me who love me and support me. And that is all that matters. The Shoemaker is a no-brainer. I'm the elf. I'm the one who has to do the work in order to achieve my goals. I'm the one who has to write in that notebook. I'm the one who has to make the phone calls, who has to do the research, who has to create the stories and the vision, and then with all that I have, move forward at achieving my goals. I have to believe in myself, in my vision, and in my purpose. So after all of this, thinking that there was something wrong with those fairy tales, they weren't flawed at all. It's just how I looked at them, my perception of them. But one thing that I noticed throughout all of them is that if you have a character that is good, that's kind, generous, hardworking, wants to belong, and has a sense of humor, you have the ability and the power to create your own magic. And in essence, your very own happily ever after. What do you think?